Hi everyone, so in this lesson we're going to focus on wage differentials between different sexes and different races. Okay, if we firstly consider different job types, we'll see that men tend to dominate senior professional roles. Now that of course means that the average or mean earnings of men or against women within an organisation is naturally skewed because of that proliferation of males among those senior professional roles within organisations. Further to this, males also dominate the fields of science, technology, engineering and maths. These areas tend to be quite well compensated due to the investment in their own human capital that employees in these areas have made, as well as the demand for such roles, which tends to be very, very high. And the reason, of course, is because these skills add a lot of value to an organisation in terms of the research and development that can be undertaken, new product development and new innovative processes, etc., etc. Okay, so that does mean that, again, there can be a natural skewing of the actual mean earnings of men versus women. Okay, now second point that I've just noted down here as well is that there's the potential for discrimination as well, and it's much debated as to what extent this takes place. What I've wanted to do here is just do a nice simple analysis of the impact of negative and positive discrimination here and what that might actually mean. So here we've got a standard labour market models where we've got wage on our y-axis and employment on our x-axis there. Same diagram, and we've got a non-discriminatory marginal revenue product here, as well as the supply curve of labour and the wage rate within this given industry. And it's the same industry that we're looking at across both examples. The only difference is here we're going to consider negative discrimination and here we're going to consider positive discrimination. Okay, so let's now consider that customers may actually discriminate negatively against salespeople from a particular ethnic background or particular sexes. Now, if they choose to do this, it's likely to mean that those salespeople cannot negotiate as high a price with their clients as perhaps a non-discriminated group would be. Now, as a direct consequence of that, the salespeople will therefore have a lower marginal revenue product. Okay, and we can illustrate that here if we just put that MRP curve in, and I'm just going to note this down as MRPD. Okay, representing the marginal revenue product of the negatively discriminated group, and let's just tally that up for our equilibrium points in this market, and we label that as ED and as WD. Okay, so we can see that we've got a lower equilibrium wage and a lower level of employment demanded from the firm due to the lower marginal revenue product of this discriminated against group. Okay, so if some consumers are actively discriminating negatively against particular salespeople, they may also be discriminating positively in favour of other salespeople. Okay, so that may be a particular sex, it may be a particular race. It's much cited that white males tend to earn more than people from other ethnic backgrounds and genders. So that might be a suitable example to consider perhaps. Okay, so we can draw in our marginal revenue product for the positively discriminated group, and then we can then mark that across with the level of employment demanded for the discriminated group and the wage level for the discriminated group. So again, what we're really considering here is that this sales group now can negotiate a higher price with their consumers, with their clients, because they're more willing to actually buy from them. Okay, so they don't need that temptation of much lower price because they're more willing to actually buy from that group that they just want to actually buy from. Okay, so it's interesting when you consider this though, because remember we've got our non-equilibrium, our non-discriminatory equilibrium marked WN, and we can see that against EN and EN there. Okay, so what's also interesting when we extend this analysis, we can also see that the consumers would actually have an incentive not to discriminate. Okay, not to discriminate, because if they positively discriminate, they're likely to end up paying more to the salespeople. So the salespeople from particular ethnic background, particular gender, would be able to command higher prices for the product or service that they're selling, as opposed to those who are being negatively discriminated against, who would be negotiating lower prices because consumers are less willing to actually buy from them. So it's argued that by many economists that there is an incentive not to discriminate because of this reasoning. So therefore economists do tend to disagree as to what extent discrimination actually takes place within the workplace. And this gives us a suitable example here, really. Okay, and we can see a big wage differential there. Okay, now further to this, of course, there's legislation to ensure that people do not actively discriminate against particular employees. So you've got things like the Equal Pay Act, the Sex Discrimination Act, the Disability Discrimination Act, the Race Relations Act, and so on. Okay, so in theory, discrimination shouldn't happen. And legally discrimination shouldn't happen. That's not to say that's always the case though, of course. Okay, third point, human capital differences. Human capital, of course, the accumulation of education, experience, knowledge, know-how and skills to actually undertake a job. And there, of course, can be differences between different sexes and different ethnic backgrounds in years of schooling, years of work, as well as the number of job interruptions. Of course, women do tend to have more interruptions within their career, particularly at the time where they are most likely to be economically productive in the workplace. So in the sort of age of 25 to 40 or so, that's when many women choose to actually have children and withdraw from the workplace for a period of time. Okay, so of course that can have a repercussion with regard to future earnings. Okay, final point that I've noted here is really about degrees of specialization. Everybody has a finite number of hours available to them, and really it's about choosing how you wish to allocate your hours. So for someone who chooses within a household to work full-time, if you assume a household of 2 adults, 2 children perhaps, then it's likely that the other adult in the household is going to bear more responsibility, perhaps for running the household, for bringing up the children and so on. So the degree to which males and females actually specialise within the household is also likely to play a part in determining the relative earnings of men versus women. Okay, right, that's it guys. I hope that's useful. Thanks a lot.